Hello and welcome to the weekly Kashmir University Video Digest Quest. First, a look at the highlights. Central University of Kashmir wins Moot Court Competition at KU. Workshop on disaster preparedness held. And we also have some important notifications of the university. Now the details with your host Musa Hayat. Law Society of the Department of Law, University of Kashmir organized a two-day Shah Hamdan Moot Court competition. A total of 12 teams from various universities and law colleges participated in the two-day Moot Court competition.
Your Honor, relevant is to note that by allowing the residents of the so-called J&K, permanent residents of the J&K, to raise that they cannot hold their land permanently. It's also the right of the non-state subjects to hold the land in the state of J&K.
Article 35A has been enacted by following the procedure under the proviso to Article 368, which reads as, no such amendment shall have effect in relation to state of Jammu and Kashmir unless applied by order of President under clause 1 of Article 370. Article 370 is the part of the Constitution as was enacted on 26 November 1949. And Article 35A flows inexorably from it. It sanctifies the Maharaja's notification of 20th April 1927, which provided for the right to property and other state subject law.
Central University of Kashmir defeated Kashmir Law College in the final. The Vice Chancellor Professor Khurshid Iqbal Andrabi presided over the final session of the competition and gave away prizes among winners and runner-up teams. After the award ceremony, Head and Dean Faculty of Law, Professor Muhammad Ayub presented a brief address.
In view of complexities of modern societies, rapid advancement and the rising expectations of the population around us, the shortcomings of our law students lies not that they have little knowledge in law, but that they have little training in dealing with facts for the people. Today, all around India, law schools are at best producing lawyers, and that production is like that Greek wisdom, a production that grows only blossoms without bearing any fruits. It is this shortcoming which has to be addressed by us. Presently, at best, we are giving some training in skills to law students, which we expect that these skills may help you ultimately when you join the bar. But the fact remains that real lawyering skills are understood by the students after they join the bar.
Senior Assistant Professor and Chairman of Law Society, Dr. Fareed Ahmed Rafiqi told students that the main aim of organizing this Moot Court competition is to create a conducive atmosphere in applying and interpreting law in the best possible manner.
This Law Society will make it its endeavor to go ahead, not stop here, but this should actually be the beginning of a new era of discussion, discourse, debate, articulation, and ultimately creating a conducive atmosphere of making law, interpreting law, applying law in the best possible manner.
Justice retired Bashir Ahmed Kirmani, who is also a member of State Accountability Commission, advised students to know the background of any law before deliberating on it.
When you discuss articles like 35A or 370 or all this, such constitutional provisions perhaps cannot be and should not be discussed in isolation with the background which necessarily went into their formulation. Now see, this 370 in the Constitution of India was preceded by very tremendous political developments in the subcontinent, here and there. And those developments definitely went into the making of 370 the way it is, or the way it was not meant to be, or the way it was meant to be. If you divorce your argument, your thinking, and your conception of the whole idea from that background, that's political background, historic background, then definitely your argument is simply a skeleton, a book argument on this article, this and that. The provisions like 35A and 370 and some other provisions, whenever you discuss them, this is a very important piece of it, that such articles and such constitutional provisions cannot and should not be discussed in isolation of the factual and historic and political background which it essentially goes into their making and which forms the essence of this all.
Commissioner State Vigilance Commission, Mrs. Gausul Nisa, said that in order to increase communication skills, it is important to hold such moot court practices.
As a student, we read theoretically all the laws, but actually when we practice it in a court of law, we feel it altogether a different way. For this purpose, the training for the scene is very important and essential. As an advocate, you are supposed to have different skills. Likewise, as a judge, you are supposed to have the different skills. But there are common things in between, which as an advocate and as a judge we need to do. I have seen that even if an advocate who pleads his case is very clear on the facts, but his presentation is not that impressive. So, the clarity on the facts, clarity on the law, and the attitude of an advocate are very essential things which we are supposed to follow. When you are clear on your facts, when you know your case fully, and then when you are clear on the law on the subject, these two factors when are in your favor, and then how you present that case before a court of law is very essential.
Former Principal District and Sessions Judge Srinagar, Mr. Mohammad Shafiq Khan, stressed the importance of the moot court practice in building one's professional career.
What appears to me, a moot court is a mock trial set up to examine a hypothetical case as an exercise, academic in nature. This is simply an academic exercise. Article 370 and Article 35A are very important articles in Constitution of India. This article, which some people till date were saying that it is unconstitutional, has been denied by the Honorable Supreme Court of India. They have said that since it's a constitutional provision, therefore cannot be struck down, and we cannot at the same time direct the Parliament to scrap it. So therefore, for you students who are participating in this moot court, have a difficult time, because somebody may defend it, somebody may oppose it.
Professor Shafiq Punjabi also spoke on the occasion.
The courts are created by statutes, and that statute which creates a court, that court cannot declare that statute unconstitutional or illegitimate. Supreme Court has been created by the Constitution, and Article 370 is a part of the Constitution, which has been, and which Constitution creates the Supreme Court itself. So Supreme Court cannot question the validity of one of its provisions which has created it. It has no jurisdiction. This is the law of the land. Am I right or not? Number one, only Parliament has jurisdiction to remove Article 370 or to abrogate it or whatever it is.
The Department of Social Work, in collaboration with Human Volunteer Organization, organized a day-long workshop on disaster preparedness and early warnings. Coordinator and Assistant Professor of Social Work Department, Dr. Shazia Manzoor, presented the welcome address.
Events of natural disaster are on the rise, and Asia is the most affected region. These disaster events not only disrupt the people's lives, but disturb the entire society and the economy of the country. In fact, one single disaster can ruin the GNP of the country. In view of this, it's clear that disaster reduction is a must for sustainable development. The main aim of disaster preparedness is to ensure that in times of disasters, appropriate administrative and technical measures, including procedures and resources, are in place to assist those affected by disasters. A combination of early warning system and disaster reduction is thus a very important step seen by decision makers at all levels as a cornerstone of preventive strategy.
Dean Academic Affairs Professor Muhammad Ashraf Wani in his presidential address talked about various man-made cases of disaster.
Given the geography of Kashmir, we cannot stop incessant rains and the resultant floods. But floods are incessant rains will occur, there will be cloud bursts, there will be what you call water would be more than what the traditional drainage of Kashmir, that is Jahlim, would contain. Floods will such kind, but the failure of the state and the society to control this, that is the cause. Similarly, in geographical condition of Kashmir, earthquake will do occur, but the failure of the society and state to develop such an architecture, structures, which would sustain, which would be earthquake resistant. Failure of the state and the society to evolve earthquake resistant structures is actually the cause.
He urged the Department of Social Work to come forward and inform people about various cases of man-made disasters and help them to mitigate it.
Basic preparedness यही है कि हमें we have to consider this thing कि पानी आ जाएगा, पानी बहुत ज़्यादा आएगा, more than what our Jahlim will contain. Therefore, during the Dogra period in 19th and early 20th century, जो suggestions उस वक्त great जो engineers थे, जो उन्होंने suggestions दी कि that we should have alternative channels. Perhaps it needs to be considered very seriously after the devastating floods of 2014. Social work department has to take a lead. They have to sensitize both the government and the society.
Member, Center for Law and Development, while speaking on the occasion, said that such informative workshops help in mitigating crisis.
The idea is not we can give you the basic training which you can take from some other organizations or other experts. The idea is to how, like at thematic level, we can prepare ourselves also for different challenges and what comes in the way. And one of the main objective of this project is also how we can create a cross-LOC disaster management cooperation. Because what we feel is because of this LOC, where people are living on both sides who by default are there, they cannot wait for conflict to end. But at the same time, we also need to consider those inaccessible regions when these disasters struck, how we can respond or what is the possibility of cooperation between the two countries, especially on LOCs. That's one of the main aim of the project.
A film on the September 2014 floods produced by Mr. Tariq Bhatt and Wajahat Kashtawari was also screened.
Defying gravity, dancing to their own tunes, resisting the authority of humans, encroached everywhere, and eventually won. The city is in a state of shock. Archives suggest that this is the worst casualty ever recorded in the history of Kashmir. A water paradise is deluged with water.
Scholar Mahmoodur Rashid conducted the proceedings of the function.
There is a relationship, a very active relationship between conflicts and disasters. Because both of these, it's not a one-way relationship. Not just the disasters impact conflicts and exacerbate the situations of conflict, it is also the reverse of it that is true. That means that whenever there is a conflicted zone, the impact of disasters, you can't fight against geography and nature, but the impacts of it in a conflicted zone can be more. People are more vulnerable in these situations because there is usually a systemic collapse in the places of conflict.
Now some important notifications. The candidates having qualified UGC NET, JRF test and also having obtained 55% marks in the PG level programs are eligible for the 3-year integrated PhD program in their respective departments. The teaching work for PG students of the first semester will terminate on November 25th and examination will commence from December 5. Students can submit their online forms up to November 20. The second semester classwork of PG will start from January 1, 2016. For students of second and third year BA, BSc, BCom, etc., there shall be no midterm test. To know more about these, log on to kashmiruniversity.ac.in or kashmiruniversity.net. With this, we come to the end of today's program. In case you have missed some part of Quest, log on to our website emmrckashmir.com where you can watch it. Send us your suggestions at our email address quest@emmrckashmir.com. Before I take your leave, here are a few words of wisdom. Educate yourselves because we will need all your intelligence. Be excited because we will need all your enthusiasm. Organize because we will need all your strength.